Kid Hardy and Michael Ford are coming. Ellen Wilkinson, the red flag, she is humming. We get around not as much as Dominic Cummings, even though he's driving blind. We are the Labour grassroots, where like-minded folk dwell. From countryside to city, it's warm and it's witty, the antidote to Pretty Patel. We are the Labour grassroots, time to raise a racket. The future is as bright as Crispin's red jacket. This is the space where we all go hell for leather, free from all the biased BBC blether. Like track and trace, we're better together, just ask Carrie and Meg. Yeah, we got all the people from Inverness, Skegness, Barrow, Inverness, Chester, Leicester, Cirencester, Shrewsbury, Oswald Street, Swansea, Bernackley, Barnsley, Beccles, Nottingham and Eccles. We are the Labour grassroots, time to plant some grass. Where we've always had social distancing between us and the upper class. Welcome to Labour Grassroots. We are going to be talking about Brexit most of this show. Boris Johnson is in discussions at the moment trying to settle his deal, and the rumour is from quite a number of sources that Keir Starmer is considering supporting Boris Johnson's deal, which is quite intriguing to me, because he was obviously one of the main people to oppose the conditions of Brexit when Theresa May was there and Boris Johnson. So what's the rationale behind that? What do Labour members feel about this vote? Do you think that Labour should support it, should abstain or vote against it? We've got a mix of views on today from all over the country. And I'm going to start with John, who is in he's in Milton Keynes North.
The EU has got a trade surplus with the UK, so they could well be the losers with no deal. Germany has just made a 1.2 billion order for aircraft from BAE. And so I think that things are sort of not quite as bad as some people are making out. But I think that we shouldn't concede anything to the EU on the two issues that are outstanding. One is the fishing rights, and the other is the question of competition, where the EU wants the EU Court of Justice to actually control matters of investment, and we can't really allow that to happen. So I don't know if that's okay as an answer to your first question. And do you need me to go on?
So you're really saying the same as any person who supports Brexit at any time, that we should just go ahead with it and vote with it?
Yeah.
So to you, it doesn't make any difference what the situation is now, or whether Labour should support it, even though the Tories can get it through without them?
Well, look, could things get any worse? We've seen this recession coming, and that, with COVID-19 on top of it. And then we've got the climate crisis as well. So, and now we're being told that we're going to be ruined if we leave the EU, which we're going to do anyhow. But if Brexit goes through with no deal, there are a lot of people in this country, Remainers we'll call them, who really want to see the country go down the tubes. I'm not one of the people who wants the country to go down the tubes. How much longer have I got?
Well, that's fine. I really appreciate you coming on and speaking. We had a test for your audio and stuff before, but it didn't come out as well live. But I've got the idea of what you're saying. Thank you for coming on. And now I'm going to speak to Brian in West Ham. Why you think Labour should vote with the government on this
Brexit.
Well, because just look what happened is last December. What happened last December was because we were seen by the electorate, particularly in our Labour heartlands up north, to backslide on the referendum result, and that's cost us the worst defeat since 1935. And the Labour right wing knew it, and they were happy to go along with it if it meant toppling Jeremy.
Right.
What we should do is combine a set of staying loyal and carrying on the project of Jeremy Corbyn in those two manifestos without the Brexit shift, but starting to be seen to respect the referendum result like we did under Jeremy, and that will see us a lot better than carrying on being seen to carrying on under a leader like Keir Starmer, who was one of the chief, not the chief architects of what happened in December 2019.
Okay. But why do you're sort of saying Keir Starmer had a lot to do with Labour's defeat and the Brexit policy? So why do you think he's changed his policy? Just because you don't think he actually believed in Remain at all?
Although if he is a Remainer, if he will always be a Remainer, the man is a trilateralist. He is a Remainer. He's a craven opportunist, careerist, and pro big business, and so he's ultimately pro EU. He's only doing this shift now because he sees the situation, and but he will be back to it. He will be back to it.
Okay.
He won't be completely free of the threat of what happened in December 2019 until we get rid of Starmer. And I'm happy to see all those CLPs across the country passing motions in support of Jeremy and no confidence in Starmer or Evans.
Yeah, okay, I agree with all that. But anyway, look, I just want to move on. Thank you, Brian. I just wanted to move on to share the survey results that I sent out a survey on this, and as you can see, Brian and John's view is quite is not common. 11% of members supporting the government. The rest either want to abstain or vote against, according to the survey. I mean, it's only 631 members, but it's not nobody. I'm going to move now to someone who supported Leave, but has a different view on how Labour should go, and that's Tosh MacDonald in Doncaster Central. Are you there, Tosh?
I'm here, Crispin. Can you hear me all right?
I can, yeah.
You could probably hear me with my voice, even if I didn't have...
I'd probably hear you without any amplification, any technology whatsoever. So what's the... You were a big Leave. You supported Leave. You thought it was a big mistake for Labour to back a second referendum. Why do you don't think that Labour should vote to support the government's bill, though?
Well, no. I mean, Keir Starmer has made an habit of abstaining on stuff, hasn't he? And whipping people to abstain. Some good comrades, the few that are there in Parliament, have broke the whip just yesterday, and I think that's a good thing to do. But Keir Starmer is responsible more than any other person for us losing the election last year. It was his policy, his change of heart on looking for a second referendum. In 2017, we stood on a platform of respecting the result, and we become within 2,500 votes of getting into government. And if it hadn't have been for shenanigans of some of the arseholes behind the scenes, we would have won that election and got in there. Now, Keir Starmer then comes up with this idea of calling for this second referendum, going in, doing this. And what that did, it lost us the election. We lost one MP in Doncaster. We had all three were Labour MPs. We lost one from Rother Valley, Caroline Flint. We've now got a Tory in there. We only kept on to Rosie Winterton in Doncaster Central because the Brexit party took votes away from Tories. In Don Central. We only kept hold of it there. So Caroline Flint was Don Valley. Lost that one. And the reason for that is that change in policy on Brexit. Nothing more, nothing less. We voted 70% to leave. I was president of ASLEF when we discussed that, and we come up with a policy that we supported leaving. The RMT, another rail union, supported leaving. The TSSA and RMT were, the TSSA and Unite were both for Remain. So it split the rail unions right down the middle as well. Now, I don't want Sir Keir Starmer to try and come up now. He's all of a sudden, look, let's face it, he wanted to go against Brexit, to go against the result because it was damaging Jeremy Corbyn. It damages him now. And I don't want him to try and get any kind of benefit out of it, because to be quite honest, the people up here in the red wall, they will see him for what he is. If he comes out and he says, we're going to support the Tories now, people will see he's just doing it to try and win votes. He didn't give a toss before. If he goes against, they'll say, well, here he is. He's not changed again. Labour's still against Brexit with no way to win. So I think he should abstain. He's sat on fence. He's got that many splinters on his arse. Why should he change it now? I believe we're better out of the Europe. When you look at what happened in 2008 after the crash, we all know about what happened with Greece and the way the EU treated them. I could go on to stuff in the rail industry for as long as you like about the damage the EU did to rail industry. That's why both ASLEF and the RMT wanted to be out. But when you look at what they did to Romania in 2008, they'd just come in to the EU. They went for a bailout of £20 billion for EU and they gave them it. But to do that, they had to cut collective bargaining within public sector, cross-sectorial collective bargaining. They had to have a 40% pay cut for public sector workers, and they did away with all kinds of agreements. That's the body that the EU is. It's nothing. It's never been a friend to workers. I could go on for ages about what I think they've done with age discrimination. They've only looked at one end of the age spectrum, and all the legislation that came from Europe on retirement ages and things, it was all geared to look after the older end of the spectrum. And I'm a pensioner now. I'm on my pension. I'm one of them, you could say. But they left the younger end in limbo. They just throw them on the scrap heap to live on 0 hours wages if they were lucky. So I don't want Keir Starmer to get any kind of grudge. He's made his own bed. Let him lie on it and let him get a few more splinters in his ass.
So actually, you if it wasn't Keir Starmer, you'd probably support it, but you like the idea that he gets splinters on his bum.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah,
okay. All right.
You can't
Okay.
buy 2 horses with 1 ass, can you, Chris?
I've got your drift there, Tosh. Now I'm going to move on to Maureen, who's in Warwickshire. Are you there, Maureen?
I am. Hello, Crispin.
Now, Maureen, you agree with Tosh that there should be an abstention here. That's what you wrote. Is that right?
Is that what I put on that thing? Because actually I've done a lot of thinking about it since as a result of your invitation. So I'm looking at your questions here. Can I say right to begin with, solidarity, return the whip to Jeremy Corbyn? I'm absolutely 100% with that. How damaging? It's very damaging. It's going to be very damaging, even dealing with Brexit in the COVID fallout now. What is going to be the damage? If Labour does back the deal, I think there'll be a loss of ability to oppose the mess that Johnson has made. Absolutely think we shouldn't support. I think we should give MPs the free vote. And there's a good reason, I think, that, which I'd like to say a little bit about, if that's okay. Is that?
Yeah.
I grew up in a Labour club in Darlaston in the Midlands. My mum and dad were the licensees, so I've got it in my bones. And one of the things I learned from my father is about genuineness and honesty. He used to say to me, oh, what a tangled web we weave when first we practice to deceive. A lot of your listeners will remember that from
I've heard that one
long ago. Yeah. And that's what's gone on here, in my opinion, because we can't, it's done. We can't not leave now. We've got to leave. But I think it's important that the MPs have the ability to have a free vote. And the reason I think that is because the greatest loss to the Labour Party is the loss of trust. And it's across the board, and not just to the Labour Party. People in general have lost trust in politicians, in politics. And the most important thing is that we get to bring back that trust. And Therefore, MPs should be able to vote with their conscience on this issue. That's my opinion. At the moment, we're stuck in a triangular situation of people who think they're right and others are wrong. And of course, those people think they're right and others are wrong. Well, that's a rigid system, and we have to get out of it. And the way we get out of it is we have to deal with whatever emerges in this deal that Johnson's got. Let him take responsibility for the results of that. And then eventually, when there's a chance to point out how many things we opposed originally, to look then at how we repair the damage done to this country. So that's my current opinion, and it's changed since you sent me the...
Right, so it's sort of like it's got to be a free vote, and just to look at what the situation is as it comes out, the deal, and not to be too rigid in the response. Well, but also to let the Tories own what they've got us into.
Absolutely, and I don't support Starmer at all. I think he's a backstabber. You just have to look at the process of what he did when he was supposedly working with Jeremy Corbyn. In actual fact, he's two-faced. I wouldn't support the man. I won't vote for him unless there's no choice. I'd like there to be a choice.
Okay, I think that you've made quite clear about your feelings on it. And now I'm going to move on to Martin, who is also he also said that there should be an abstention. Are you there, Martin?
Evening, everyone. We all right?
Yeah. So, Martin, where are you based?
I'm up in Hemsworth.
Oh, Hemsworth. Right. Okay.
Hemsworth
we've got someone else
constituency.
from Hemsworth coming on. What's your view? Do you think that Keir Starmer should be backing Johnson or abstaining, or what?
I think my view is, I think that up here in the Wakefield area, for instance, MPs like Mary Crew representing heavily Leave constituencies and then coming out backing Remain really heavily. That did a lot of damage, I think, and I think things like that contributed towards Labour losing the general election, because they don't really like, people feel there's a disconnect between Labour and like our local MPs, our representatives. So I think that it needs to go to MPs having a free vote, and if they decide to abstain or vote for or vote against, they should be doing the best for their constituency, because I think that would help restore perhaps a little bit of trust, which is massively damaged to all MPs and politicians at all levels, and even councillors are feeling this pain at the moment, I would say, because like here in Wakefield, it's just the council just gets absolutely slaughtered for things that aren't even their fault. They're trying to do, they're doing the best with reduced budgets and everything, and yet they're getting picked off because of really what's going on in London. And I joined the Labour Party in February, so I'm probably a newer member than what a lot of people are tonight. And I'm not like a massive Corbynite. I'm not for Starmer. And the way I saw the referendum as well is it was just a vote. It was, I took part in it. I'm not really massively passionate one way or the other. So that's kind of like where I sit. But I would say that we need to restore some trust to our MPs, to our Labour guys and girls, and yeah, that's kind of where it's very similar to Maureen, I think.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you for coming on the show. And I'm going to move from Hemsworth to Worcestershire, where Mary has been unmuted. Are you there, Mary?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can, yeah.
Good.
I can see your hand as well.
I know, it's all right. So
right.
I say before, I've got trouble with the internet, so I'm on my phone, which is difficult.
So you think that Labour should abstain as well?
Yes, I do, definitely. if I take a slightly different view to a lot of people, I supported 100% Jeremy Corbyn. I think he was fabulous. I met him a few times. He was great, but he couldn't win an election. And he could, in my view, he couldn't win an election, A, because of the things that were going on, like Brexit and a bit of internal stuff. But on the doorstep, it was impossible. It was, I did a lot of door knocking, and the number one reason that people were not going to vote Labour was because of Jeremy Corbyn. I don't understand that, but that was the reality of door knocking. So saying that, I now support Starmer, because I think that we must support our leader. And the kind of things that are happening, like, a socialist group being put, or a real socialist group being put together, etc. I mean, I am a socialist, but I may not think the same as a lot of very, hard line left. I don't, because I think we're in a very mixed country. Starmer is supported on the doorstep, and he is supported. I've been making phone calls, etc., to all the members locally. The new ones all say as soon as Starmer won the leadership, they joined. So I think we should abstain, and abstain because if we can't win, so there's no point in arguing the point. But if we abstain, we're leaving ourselves with the door open to say, we didn't support this. If we go and support it, I think, as someone has already said, we are stuck, because we have said we support what you're doing. Why are you complaining now? So
Okay,
that's.
Can I just ask you, because Keir Starmer's strategy on lots of votes, especially around the COVID regulations, has been to abstain, so as not to, almost in the same way as you've described as a strategy.
Yeah.
This rumour that he would consider supporting Boris's Brexit deal, can you understand that? I can't understand it. Why would he do that?
Well, you just said the word, didn't you? You said rumour. I mean, I haven't heard him say that he's going to support Boris. Who has? I mean,
Okay. All right. Well, it is a rumour. I mean, I'm not. It's not something that I picked up sort of down at the chip shop.
I know. But
it is in
I
quite
have
a few
out here
different
in
places that he would support it.
Yeah.
But you don't think you're not sure he will?
I'm not sure he will, but he may abstain again.
But if he did vote for it, would it put your mind against him?
Well, you see, I can play devil's advocate and say, well, something's got to be done, and better to agree to a policy to get us all, to the vaccine and all of that stuff after today. It may be best to go along with it, because what will happen if you don't and you fight it and you won, we're left with, worse than not having any strategy at all.
Right. Okay. Well, I appreciate you coming on, and it's good that you can clear everyone's minds about the popularity of Starmer, because on this show you're not hearing much of that.
No, I know, but
if there are other people who think that he's doing a good job, it's good to find out what they're saying as well. So
yeah.
Thank you very much for coming on.
Okay.
And I'm going back now to Hemsworth, to Stan. Are you there, Stan?
Hi, Crispin. Can you hear me?
I can, yeah.
No, good, thanks. Difficult to discuss anything with Starmer's name in it without going off the subject. But listening to Tosh McDonald, as usual, I can't find anything he said that I could disagree with. I think we've all agreed that Starmer was the architect of our defeat in 2019. And as I'm secretary of our CLP, I know the feeling of the membership. We had a lot of them that voted Remain, and that's a legitimate view, who now feel conned and betrayed by him. Because a few months ago he said, get Brexit done, which is in stark contrast to what he was saying prior to the election. So I do assimilate him with Bojo, because he seems to decide on what policy best suits his own agenda, rather than what's best for the party or the country even. Now, I voted leave because I'm a socialist, and being in the EU was a big barrier to socialism, as in public ownership, investment in areas, deprived areas, and things like that. But when it comes to what I think about whether there's a deal or no deal, I don't actually think there'll be a deal, because Bojo's backers don't want a deal. They've bet money on no deal, you know. So there may be a pretentious deal on the table that I think Starmer may support, because it will make a change from abstaining, if only it breaks up from that. But I think it's a disaster on top of a crisis. My own view is that any responsible leader of opposition party should have gone for an extension to the transition period until at least the pandemic's over, and then start talking sense. Because, and I think Starmer will support the government, as I said, to break the monotony of abstaining, but also, and he will argue it, that it's better than no deal. That's my view. I don't have to say much more, because like I said, the previous speakers have covered it. But to answer what Mary just said, I'd just like to say, I don't support a leader that's trying to kick me out of the party. You know, no way.
Was it? Do you think that you said that it should be dragged out a bit longer until after the pandemic, sort of effects of the pandemic have gone? Do you not think that has he not made any attempts at that? I don't think he has he, Starmer?
No, absolutely not.
He's
not made any attempt at opposing the government at all on anything, has he? I think, like, just like Tosh said, he's got needles in his ass for sitting on the fence.
Well, we've had enough about. Okay, Stan, we've had enough about the bottom stuff. Right?
Okay.
Having any more?
My apologies.
No more splinters.
I think he'll support the government just to make a change for abstaining and say it's better than no deal. You know, that's all.
Right. So it's just a bit of variety. All right. Thank you, Stan. Good to see you. Angus in Windsor, who we have not had on the show before to speak. Are you there, Angus?
I'm here, yeah, Kristen.
Right. So you think that Labour should vote against the deal?
I think so, because it's about time that we actually voted against something that Boris has actually put forward. I mean, we're not going to actually change that much, but at least it actually shows willing that we want to actually fight against the Tories, because all we've been doing is fighting each other. And we have got someone in charge here who has been fighting a very, very snide and little underhand battle within the party at the moment. We've had Starmer actually going in and agreeing on policies which have been frankly ridiculous, just to pat Boris on the back. When you started this thing, you actually said, how will we deal with Brexit after COVID? I would actually swap that about and say, how will we deal with COVID after Brexit? And that's really what I want. I want to actually just get into a situation where we work out what the hell we're going to do about COVID first, and then Brexit. It can sit there. It's been sitting there for God knows how long. If we do Brexit and COVID at the same time, we're fighting on two fronts. And both of those fronts are unknown quantities. We really, really need to get our act together with COVID, because it's killed about 70,000 people in this country. And economically, it's crippling. Brexit will also be economically crippling. I was a Remain voter, but once the whole thing actually happened, I said, right, okay, as long as we can actually talk to the EU, keep a decent policy with regard to free trade, freedom of movement, etc., try and get as many things that were good out of the EU to remain on the table. A lot of that is gone up in flames now, because before becoming a political partner with the EU and its neoliberal policies, we were just trading bloc. We were a trading bloc, and I thought, well, if we can get back to that, it would be good. So I think abstention, free vote, it's not going to be for that long, but at least it actually shows that we're not agreeing with Johnson because he's getting off with murder, literally. And if we actually agree with him, what are we? Are we socialists? Are we human? And if we vote against it, we will be at least a point where we're actually saying, yes, we're opposing the government. We are a proper opposition. If we vote with it, it's just appeasement. It's appeasement of the red wall, the supposed red wall. This is political speak. So I think we should actually just cancel Brexit for the time being, vote or not vote, rather abstain or have a free vote, because it's far too important to actually push Brexit through in the times of COVID.
Well, it's a good point. It's a terrible time to be changing the whole trading situation of the country when everything's in such turmoil. It's unbelievable. And to even think that it's not being questioned, just to let it hang a little bit longer, like you say, it's bizarre. Thank you very much, Angus. Going to move to Mike, who is becoming a regular in Brent, in North London. Are you there, Mike?
I'm there. I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can. Yeah. So, Mike, you're against supporting the Boris's deal, whatever the deal is. What's your reason behind that?
Well, look, let's go back to what was said earlier. What I want to know is, if Keir Starmer is the person who lost us the last election, why did the membership go off and vote for him in such large numbers? And I think we have to move away from this sort of narrative of betrayal. The fact is, it wasn't just the PLP, but most of the members of the party were for Remain. Quite a large chunk of the voters were for Leave. And I don't see that Jeremy Corbyn had a lot of other choice, really, other than to try and square that circle by saying we'll have an opportunity to have another vote. It's all very well saying we should have stuck to the 2017 position, but by 2019, every affiliate, every CLP supported the option at conference that went into the 2019 manifesto. And this reflects that people wanted to have a second thought. I think there's something wrong with this analysis that says it was all down, we should have just kept the 2017 position. The idea that all you need to do is one more heave and we would have got over the line fails to take into account the fact that the Tories might have learned a few things after 2017 and were prepared to throw everything they could at Jeremy Corbyn and his leadership, including patriotism and everything else we know about. So we were in a completely different situation. Plus, don't forget, in 2019, we had the European elections where Labour's vote fell to 13.5%. And what was going on there was the same 16-year-olds who went out and hit the phones for Jeremy Corbyn's leadership campaign in 2015 were now voting Lib Dem in 2019, and I know some of them, because they realised their future was at stake. And they were going back to first principles because they understood that the 2016 referendum was called in the first place because of a division inside the Tory party, where they were losing votes in large numbers to UKIP. We had a Leave campaign that lied, that used illegal methods, that stirred up enough toxic racism to lead to the death of one of our MPs. And at the end of that, we're supposed to roll over and say, ooh, there's been a vote, we must now abide by it, otherwise people will feel they haven't been heard. It's a collective death wish. The right thing to do is to go back to first principles and say we should be in alliance with the Spanish and Portuguese socialists who want to change the EU into an institution that can work for people, not opt out individually and leave everyone else to it. I'm saying this now. I didn't say it before the election. I loyally stuck to the Jeremy Corbyn line, and I was proud to do so because I thought that was the right thing to do. I certainly would never have anything to do with the People's Vote campaign, who are more obsessed with bringing down Corbyn than actually winning the argument about Europe. But now it needs to be said, and that's why we have to vote against this. And, otherwise, what's the point of having an opposition and what's the point of having a democracy? You just accept the other side won. You would never have protested in all the years of Thatcher and Major and just let them get on with it. Well, of course, in the end, that's what they did. That's what I want to say.
Okay. Thank you. That was a very strong statement. Right, Carl in Tunbridge in Kent.
Hi.
How are you doing?
I'm fine, thanks.
So you think that Labour should vote against as well. What is there a particular reason that you haven't heard that you've got about this?
Well, I think we should start by any idea voting for something Boris Johnson does. Why would anyone in the Labour Party want to do that? The whole point is you're an opposition party, you should oppose. Now, if you vote in favour of it, you're actually owning it. I live in the southeast. We started losing jobs about 3 years ago down here in a big number because of the amount of companies that actually work in Europe all the time. This will spread out. You're going to be looking at an economic disaster coming from this. And to actually co-own it with the Tories, what we should do is just say, right, you did negotiations, this is your mess, you own it.
Yeah. All right, well, that's very short and to the point.
I can talk more if you want. Other things.
No, I like your. It's a very straightforward point.
I mean, I think that for the Labour Party, we should have, after the referendum, actually had a special conference. We should have discussed it and sorted it out ourselves. And we should have come up with a position that we democratically agreed on. And whether that was Remain or whether that was a form of leave that was defined, it would have been better than what we had. Because while I prefer Remain, a defined leave I can actually argue in favour of in certain terms, and I can actually argue against the Tories. But the fudge that we had didn't suit anyone. And when we went out on the doorsteps in 20, anyway, we had council elections before European elections. Going out on the doorstep there, we got slaughtered by everyone because we weren't Remain enough Remainers, we weren't enough leaders, and everyone could just see that we had this fudge position in the middle, and we actually need to come up with decent positions and argue for them. Right,
that's true. All right, thank you, Carl. I'm going to move to Bristol, to Kate. Who has been on before. It's good to see you again, Kate. Are you there?
I am.
Yeah, and you have you support the idea of voting against as well. You don't want splinters, and you don't agree with supporting Boris Johnson. So, is that where you are?
Yes, but it's a bit more nuanced than that. Right. I don't agree with supporting the government on anything, but the point that I made in the answers to my question is I think that there's a bigger issue, and I think it's about the media in the country and how whatever we do as the Labour Party, in government or not in government, whoever the leader is presented in a certain way. So I listen with interest to everyone talking about how Jeremy Corbyn was received on the doorstep and how our Brexit policy was received on the doorstep. And I genuinely believe that we could have delivered the perfect Brexit solution for the country where everybody was 100% happy. And the way the media would have portrayed that would have scuppered us anyway. People on the doorstep didn't like Jeremy Corbyn, but they didn't really know why. They liked a lot of our policies, but they still didn't vote for us. And I don't buy that people in the north were too stupid to understand what they were voting for when they voted to leave. I believe they had genuine reasons for doing that. I didn't agree with them, mainly because I don't believe that we can have a good Brexit with a Tory government. I might have considered voting for a Brexit with a left-wing government, but I don't believe that Boris Johnson and his loonies are a safe pair of hands to take us crashing out of the EU. So my point is I'm not sure that it matters whichever way the Labour Party, individuals within the party vote. I'm not sure it matters what Keir Starmer says. I firmly believe that there are deals being done over dinners with members of the Daily Mail and The Sun and News International that are dictating our policy. I'm sure that Keir Starmer is getting into bed with them in readiness to take on a government if it's decided that we need a change in the country. And that's my point. Sorry if it's not popular.
So what do you think Keir Starmer's doing then? He's trying to win over the media.
I don't think he's trying to win over the media. I think if it is decided that for the theatre of our political process, we now need a different government without, you know, and not a Tory government, then there will be dinners like there were with Blair and his cronies, be dinners with Murdoch and the Mail and all of those people, and it, you know, a smooth transition of power will be being arranged.
Wow, that's quite depressing.
Sorry, but that's what I believe.
Yeah.
I don't believe that we should stop campaigning. I think it means actually that it is more incumbent on us to keep fighting harder, but not necessarily always in the CLPs. We have to be at the food banks, we have to be at the shelters, and we have to be doing real things on the ground.
How your view about how it works, that could be construed as a conspiracy theory.
It could, yeah, I know it could.
But it's got some basis to it because of what Tony Blair did
exactly.
with Murdoch.
Exactly, and I honestly do not see any other good explanation of what happened on the doorstep when we were out canvassing, of why people could look at a man who was a good man. I didn't think he was perfect, but he was a decent man with decent policies, and hate him so much. The level of misrepresentation, that is a massive clue of what the media is doing in this country, I think.
Yeah. Well, we have to. People talk about having an alternative media, so it sounds like an uphill task. Thank you, Kate, for that reality check. Emiliano in Lewisham, are you there?
No, I'm in London at the moment in the office. But yeah.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, I mean, but where you normally live, not.
Yes, from Lewisham. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So. Your view on the Brexit vote is to oppose the deal, and do you want to tell people your reasons for that?
Well, I very much agree with the latest views. I think we need to oppose Boris Johnson and his government no matter what, and it's very important to start to show some very clear principles, even if they're not going to win us immediate benefits with the newspapers or opinion or anything. For me, the Brexit is a disaster, not only because of economic the economic catastrophe that is going to come, and the cost that is going to have. It may have some benefits in the future, but for me as an immigrant in this country, the vote had an undercurrent of anti-immigrant feeling very strong, and I think that actually gave the victory to that vote. And it's very, very painful. It's something very, very hurtful. And I can't see a progressive party and a Labour Party actually kind of embed with something that was born or actually kind of got into victory with that undercurrent and that came from that those ideas from Farage, I think this Brexit version is an invention of the far right media and the anti-immigration, the take back control, the fear of the foreigners. I think that's what won it, and yeah, it's very, very painful.
Do you think that with the COVID as well, that anti-immigrant rhetoric will increase with Brexit?
Yes, it will definitely increase, because I mean the COVID is a catastrophe, an economic catastrophe that is going to be some added to what Brexit is going to be. So we are really going into very dark times. There's going to be enormous unemployment and an erosion of all the social structures that we had. Without the protections that the European Union was at the end giving. So there was always an extra level of protection in terms of human rights. And so yes, we're going into very dark times. It's not a good thing. So any responsible politicians should very much support and insist that there should be an extension to the transition agreement. It's unbelievable that we still don't know what Brexit looks like a few weeks to actually kind of end the transition. It's a scandal, and Labour and any responsible opposition should be very clear on that and vote against it. And also it's a way of not falling into the trap, because I mean Labour has been into a trap between being for or abstaining or against. Jeremy, I think at the beginning he had a very clear position, which was let's support Europe, but let's stay in Europe. Let's try to reform it from inside. Let's work with progressive parties in Europe. And I think that was the right position, and the whole thing. I mean, he was under massive pressure from every side in the latest moments. With Starmer, I think I mean he has always been very clear, and he is a Remainer, as I am too. I'm convinced this is it's a catastrophe. I think we need to support him and actually try to force him to take a position, definitely. So yes, that's my view.
Right. Okay. Well, I mean, I think it's surprising that Starmer's voting, thinking of voting for it. But as Mary said, we don't know yet. It's a rumor, but we'll see what.
Yeah.
But it doesn't sound like he is going to vote against it anyway. His record is abstain or abstain. But anyway, thank you, Emiliano. I'm going to move on to Steve, who is in. He's near you, Emiliano. He's in Dulwich and Norwood. Are you there, Steve?
Yes, I'm there. Yeah, hi. I wanted to say I like what Kate had to say, and I also agree with what Emiliano wanted to say. But my position is this, really, that whatever we thought about before the referendum, once the referendum had taken place, what it did was split the working class. I mean, Tosh gave us an example, it split the rail unions. Once the working class has been divided in that way, then we're all going to be in serious trouble. We're really in a hole that's quite difficult to get out of. And Brexit split the working class. Now, the only way you can get out of that hole, in my opinion, is to take a very democratic point of view as to how you deal with that problem. There has to be a democratic answer to it, because that's the only way that you can appeal to both sides of that argument. Now, what I would have in a democratic position is, number one, you've got to remember, nobody said this, that Ireland and Scotland voted to remain in the European Union. So why the heck can't they remain in the European Union? Number one, England and Wales voted to leave the European Union, so they should be allowed to leave the European Union. So that's important. Then, of course, we've got the fact that nobody voted to leave the single market or the customs union because it wasn't on the ballot paper. We only voted to leave the European Union. That's the Tories taking that result and turning it into a really hard Brexit that nobody voted for. So why are we going along with that? And then the final point, which is really important, is like in a trade union, any deal that's been done by the government should be put to the people so we can vote on it. If you were in a trade union branch and your negotiators gave you a deal, you'd want to vote on it once you saw what the deal was. So those things, respecting the Scottish and the Irish people, not leaving the single market and the customs union because we never voted for it, and allowing the people to have a ratification referendum. Now, I just make this clear, I'm totally and utterly opposed to a second referendum and trying to turn over the first referendum. That would be a disastrous and divisive thing to do. Now, what Labour did at the end was, Corbyn was more ratifier, but then he had have a second Remain question on the ballot paper, and then that was a thing that really screwed everything up because it tried to go over both sides. Now, if it comes back to where Starmer is, go back to those questions, Crispin, that you posed at the beginning. I do believe Brexit will be damaging. I do believe it will be damaging to jobs and trade and bureaucracy and traffic jams and goodness knows what else. I do think that's true. If we're going to, what we're going to say, well, I would oppose any deal that didn't match those democratic criteria. So any deal that doesn't keep Ireland and Scotland in the European Union, and any deal that takes us out of the single market and the customs union, and any deal that doesn't give us the right as people to ratify it in a referendum, then we should oppose. The Labour Party should oppose it, and we should do so on the grounds that that's democracy. Right. Not a second referendum, but that's democracy. Now, that Labour MP should be told to go along with that as well. There's at least 4 or 5 democratic arguments as to why you really should come out hard against a deal that has been imposed on the Scottish and the Irish people and on England without us having any right to say whether we agreed with it when we actually saw the terms of the deal. Who would want to go along with something when you don't know what the terms of the deal are? We don't even know it now, to be honest.
Right. Okay.
You can just say this for a final point. I'll stop there. It's difficult to put this position there now because we've been arguing it all the way through since 2017. We've been in quite a strong position to oppose it now on democratic grounds, and we haven't taken the democratic argument. Corbyn was really going down the democratic road when he said he'd accept the result. So he was going down that road quite rightly. Then he got derailed into the second referendum and the Remain question that really screwed it up. Finish there. Sorry, Chris.
Okay, so right. Thank you. Now I'm going to speak to Chris. Who are you there, Chris?
Is that me from?
Can't hear you, Chris.
I can't. Let me see if I can get you back. I think you've just come off. Hold on.
Oh,
there you
can
are.
you hear me now?
I can, yeah.
All right. Yeah, my take on this is that I feel really cheated that by the fact that our MPs did not roll their sleeves up and get on with the job of getting a decent Brexit deal. Because if they had done, we'd have something to put to the public. Even now, we wouldn't need to abstain. We would say, this is the Labour view, and Boris either accepts some of it or he goes ahead. Now, I spoke at the conference in Brighton in 2019 on this very subject, and I highlighted that there are some rotten people on the Leave side, in other words, supporting the powerful and greedy section of society, and there are also some not very good people on the Remain side. They were after some, you know, we know what they were trying to do, unseat Corbyn by using the Remain tactic. I wonder what Sadiq Khan's view is on the supporting Boris or anything like that at the moment, because we had to throw boxes and boxes away of leaflets for the mayoral election saying, stop Brexit, put it to the people. Well, these leaflets were very handy when the toilet rolls were short in the supermarket, I'm sure, but there was, because there's a lot of them to go round. But where is the Labour alternative? I don't see it. And I don't even know what the deal of the Conservatives are, but some might do, but we're not being told. We're just not being told at all. And I think there's been shenanigans. Nobody has looked for the whole nation. Well, I'll tell you who it has done, and that's Mr. Corbyn. He's the only one I could have trusted in this, because he had his ideas of controlling immigration in a way that it wasn't detrimental to people in this country by bringing in cheap labour and stuff like that. He was going to make it on an even playing field so that it wasn't that people couldn't be brought into this country and exploited for cheap labour and that. So that was the best idea on immigration, which were a lot of people concerned about. But they really have let us down, our politicians. They're not representing the best interest of the whole people, business and working people. They've not considered the best interests of that, and they've just let things slide and get rid of Corbyn. That's the main thing these the Remain people who pushed that at the last few months before the general election. They pushed that deliberately, I believe, to get Corbyn out. And what alternative we've got now? I believe that Sir Keir Starmer is an establishment plant, and he's going to do everything in his power to destabilise the Labour Party and wreck it, so that that 10.2 million votes we got at the last election was that was a substantial amount of votes, regardless of Brexit, to get a government elected. And now Brexit's out. Well, Brexit is not a focus of the election. In the next one is probably not going to be that. But we could have really, you know, that was a substantial basis to go from for the next election. I'll give you an example. Just last thing, three of my friends, three close associates, all Corbyn supporters, voted Conservative because they didn't trust our MPs to do the job on Brexit. So I rest my case on that. Thank you very much. God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. So we've come to the end of the journey around the country of members and different opinions. I'm not some sort of chair who concludes what the answer is, but I would say that there's not much support for Keir Starmer and the Labour Party backing Boris Johnson's Brexit deal. As that opinion poll showed, obviously it was good to hear from John and from Brian about their reasons for supporting it. But I think, in a way, those were the same reasons that any Brexiteer would say for Brexit from the start. At the moment, with this COVID situation, it's just astonishing to me that we haven't tried to push it further along while we try and sort that out, as Angus was talking about. And really, you know, it is a really bad time to be putting this thing through. And I can't really get my head around the idea that Keir Starmer would support Boris Johnson on this bill. But we'll see. It might just be a rumour, as Mary was saying. Maybe he's going to do his abstaining again, and then Tosh can talk about what he does on splinters. Now we've come to our favourite songwriter extraordinaire, who I'm just not blows me over with his the number of songs that he writes and how great they are. Rob, are you there?
Yeah, we haven't heard it yet.
Oh yeah, but you've got a good credit rating on songs. So you've written a song called "Boris Put the Kettle On."
Yeah, I wrote that. Yeah,
a nursery rhyme that I sing to my son.
Yeah.
Is it? Does it use the same chorus?
It does have the same. It borrows the same traditional melody line at the end.
Well, the British Bulldog knows it is a bad thing, being German, being Spanish, being French, because we won the war, which is a good thing. We beat the Germans, beat the Spanish, beat the French, and the Sun and the Daily Mail all agree. Let's get Brexit done so we can have a cup of tea, and the British Bulldog likes his tea from Yorkshire, because Blighty is the only place to be, drinking British pints of Stella brewed by Whitbread, singing Britain's favourite song, God Save the Queen. It's as British as our royal family. Let's get Brexit done so we can have a cup of tea, and we must teach our children British values. How good old Winston Churchill won the war. The Scots wear kilts, the Welsh sing and the Irish, but the greatest living Englishman is always Bobby Moore. Oh, take me back to 1953. Let's get Brexit done, then we can have a cup of tea, and the British Bulldog knows we have to fight them, just like good old Winston used to say. Fight the bureaucrats from Brussels on the beaches, who want to take our pounds and pints away. and we'll get a US trade deal once we're free. So let's get Brexit done, then we can have a cup of tea. So Boris, put the kettle on. Boris, put the kettle on. Boris, put the kettle on. We'll all have tea. Rishi, take it off again. Rishi, take it off again. Rishi, take it off again. Let's have austerity instead. Again.